Every sculpt begins as silence. A single digital sphere, cube, or cylinder suspending in nothingness. It waits like dormant flesh, like an idea still asleep. And in that void, there is potential. Not beauty, not horror, nothing specific, just potential. The kind that makes you wonder, what could this become if I start pulling it? What if I stretch it too far? What if I break it? That's the question that drives every mutation. It's the question that drives every artist who dares to sculpt chaos into form. In Zbrush, we call it Dynamesh, a digital clay that forgives and forgets. It's the closest thing to a living medium because it lets you destroy and rebuild endlessly. You pull, you push, you carve, you merge. You fracture the silhouette until it stops looking human and starts to look interesting. Sometimes I think of it like mutation itself, a creative virus crawling through the mesh, searching for new possibilities in the tissue of form. And the moment it begins to distort, the moment the familiar body starts to warp, that's when the sculpt begins to breathe. There is something ancient about our fear of transformation. The idea that flesh can betray its owner, that beneath the surface, the body hides a secret version of itself, waiting to emerge. That is terrifying. But maybe that's why I love sculpting mutations. Because somewhere between anatomy and chaos, there's honesty. There's truth in distortion. When you push beyond perfection, you start finding something real. Every mutation begins with anatomy. Even the most monstrous design has roots in structure. The clavicle still anchors the shoulder. The rib cage still protects something precious. The femur still remembers how to hold weight. When I sculpt a creature tearing out of its human form, I think about tension, the muscle fibers that resist transformation, the skin pulled too tight across bones that no longer fit. Zbrush becomes a laboratory of flesh and instinct. Each stroke of the clay buildup mutates intent. Each pinch of the move tool evolves the design. I sculpt fast. I do not overthink. The faster I move, the closer I get to instinct. It's like jazz sculpting, improvisation in 3 dimensions. You start with nothing, and by rhythm alone, you discover something that feels alive. And that's when it happens. That pulse, that invisible heartbeat under the surface of the mesh, that's when I know the creature is real enough to fear. People think horror is about monsters, but horror is about reflection. The human face looking back at you from something that shouldn't have happened. When we watch transformation, when a man becomes a beast, or a human merges with the machine, our boundaries dissolve. The illusion of control and security breaks. In a way, that's what every artist does. We take control just to lose it. We build structure just to deconstruct it. We create order and then celebrate its collapse. There's beauty in that surrender. The beauty of seeing the human dissolve into something primal, something unknown. Because deep down, we know that that's where creation begins. In the unknown, in chaos. Sculpting it's not about perfection. It's about mutation. Every stroke adds a new piece of DNA into the mesh. Sometimes I find that the design is fighting me. It wants to stay human. But other times it surrenders. And the form stretches willingly into monstrosity. When I sculpt, I feel like I'm documenting a transformation in real time. A parasite of imagination rewriting the body from the inside out. Like the xenomorph from Alien. Like something sacred mutating into something forbidden. And yet, it's peaceful. People imagine this kind of art as violent or chaotic, but to me, it's more like meditation. The sound of thought melting into instinct, the process of becoming the creature itself, and letting it speak through my hands, that's something that I cannot describe with only words. Every pull, every stretch, every crease of the digital flesh, it's a conversation between control and surrender, between design and accident, between the artist and the abyss. In classical sculpture, the body was sacred. Michelangelo found divinity in muscles. Rodin found emotion in skin. But in digital art, I think we can break the sacred. We can peel the anatomy, open it, and reimagine evolution itself. Body horror, at its core, is anatomy misbehaving. The human form rewritten by desire, by fear, by mutation. When I sculpt, I study not just what muscles do, but what they could do if I pushed them beyond reason. What if tendons bloomed like coral? What if the spine split into branches? What if the face folded back like petals, revealing something radiant beneath? Those questions are not grotesque. They are liberating. They remind me that form is infinite, that every creature design is a hypothesis of existence. Maybe that's the artist's role, to imagine new anatomies for the soul. These aren't just sculptures of monsters. These are allegories of change. Every transformation is a metaphor for what we fear most, that we are not infinite, that we could wake up tomorrow and not recognize ourselves in the mirror. Art, like mutation, thrives on instability. And when I sculpt, I chase that instability deliberately. Because that's where discovery hides. In the unstable forms between human and inhuman, between beauty and horror. Sometimes I stop sculpting and I stare at the sculpture in process. I see the forms that twist in silence, frozen mid-transformation, as if waiting for permission to keep evolving. There's something sacred about that stillness. It reminds me that horror and divinity share the same language. Both are grotesque, but both are awesome. They're transcendent. Both surrender in the grotesque. When I sculpt a mutation, I think of sculpting as revelation. The body admitting it was never meant to stay the same. Change, for me, is the closest thing we have to learning our purpose in life. Artists live in that same metamorphosis, always shedding, rebuilding, experimenting, never satisfied with the shape that we have made. Sculpting for me becomes a prayer, each brush stroke a confession, each crease of flesh a question whispered into the void. Improvisation is the heartbeat of this kind of creature sculpting. I open Zbrush. I do not start with a plan. I start with curiosity. Only curiosity and only one question. What if? What if this shoulder becomes a second face? What if the arm grows from the spine? What if the rib cage opens like a mouth? Dynamesh doesn't care. It just adapts. It flows like tissue under a scalpel. You can rip, you can merge it, you can carve, but it keeps living. That for me is the joy of mutation sculpting. You don't design the creature, you discover it. You pull until it tells you what it wants to become. And sometimes it becomes something unsettling, something too human to dismiss. That's when you know you've touched truth, because truth, like mutation, is never comfortable. The irony of horror is that it creates more than it destroys. Every disfigured form is also a birth. Every transformation, an act of renewal. That's what Zbrush is to me. A digital confessional, where ideas mutate freely, where horror becomes a language of truth. People ask me, why sculpt something disturbing? And I think to myself, because every beauty is already everywhere. But the grotesque hides meaning. It forces us to look longer or to look away, to see beyond the surface, to confront what we don't want to see in ourselves. As this sculpt nears completion, I realize it was never about finishing the sculpt. It's about the process. It's about transformation. It's about what changed in me while I was creating this sculpture. It's about what changed in the sculpture throughout the process and why I took those decisions. The creature becomes a mirror of thought. Each horn, a decision. Each fold of skin, a hesitation. It's a record of my impulses, frozen in digital tissue. Zbrush gives us godlike power to create, but it also humbles us, because the more we mutate the form, the more we realize how mutable we are. Art changes us. Every time we sculpt, every time we paint or draw, we deform our own mental anatomy. We evolve. So when you see this creature changing, when you see the flesh stretch, bones shift, and the human dissolve into the inhuman, remember, this is what creation looks like. Messy, uncertain, beautiful, and terrifying, just like us. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope it inspires you to create your own creatures or to hold on to your art if you're going through a tough time. If you want to see more videos like this, join the community on Patreon and Discord. I will leave the links in the description of this video. Help me out with a like or a comment letting me know if this video was useful to you. If you have any suggestions to improve this type of content, or any requests for a future video. I am Christopher Cruz, and I see you next time.